job of trying to find out whether or not, hey, I know technically I'm not the president, but I can't throw Joe Biden under the bus. So it's kind of like a give and take. So we're going to go ahead and play it right now.
Illegal immigrants from more than 150 countries.
Mm.
How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. And you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but
right now,
just a number. Do you think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Brett, let's just get to the point. Okay, the point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions.
I'm not finished. We have an
rough estimate of 6 million people have been released into the country. And let me just finish. I'll get you the question. I promise you.
I was beginning to answer.
And when you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies. Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate remain in Mexico at the beginning of your...
So before she answered that, I want to say this. Notice how he didn't start like, hi, Madam Vice President, how are you doing today? It's lovely. How do you feel about how your campaign going? It kind of automatically just start with immigration. And you know, immigration is one of the big topics and big issues that we have right now. It automatically just started out hot. And then notice like she was trying to answer, he kept on like interrupting her. And usually one of my criticisms for Kamala is that she's very long-winded, but I feel like he didn't even get her a chance to really answer. And he was like, how many illegals have you let in? How many is it? What's the number? What's the exact number? And what she was trying to do was give him like a solution rather than being like, oh yeah, we let in 30 million immigrants into the country. Because that's what he was looking for. They let in millions and millions of people.
Administration.
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress, before we worked on infrastructure, before the Inflation Reduction Act, before the CHIPS and Science Act, before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the...
Yes, ma'am. May I finish responding, please? But you have to let me finish,
You had the White House and the House and the Senate,
and they didn't bring up that bill. I'm in the middle of responding to the point you're raising, and I'd like to finish.
Yes, ma'am.
We recognized from day one that to the point of this being your first question, it is a priority for us as a nation and for the American people. And our focus has been on fixing a problem. And from day one, then, we have done a number of things, including to address our asylum system and put more resources, getting more judges, what we needed to do to tighten up penalties and increase penalties for illegal crossings, what we needed to do to deal with points of entry between border entry points. That's the work we did, and we worked on supporting what was a bipartisan effort, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, to actually strengthen the border. That border bill would have put 1,500 more border agents at the border, which is why I believe the Border Patrol agents supported the bill. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States, which is a scourge affecting people of every background, every geographic location in our country, killing people. It would have allowed us to put more resources into prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, which I have done as the Attorney General, former Attorney General of a border state.
Madam Vice President, a couple of things.
Prosecuted trafficking of drugs, guns, and human beings. And Donald Trump, but let me just finish.
6 Democrats voted against that bill.
Learned about that bill and told them to kill it because he preferred to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And in this election, this is rightly a discussion that the American people want to have.
Okay. So I just wanted to let you know. So yeah, the act that they were talking about was the U.S. Citizen Act of 2021. And it basically, that was the first bill that was introduced on the first day. That is true. And he is right about that. They did have the House and the Senate at the time. Why didn't they pass it? Well, at the time when they first came in, we were still going through Coviana. As you guys know, I'm not going to say the word because I don't want my video flag. We were going through Coviana. So Coviana kind of took precedence over everything else before immigration. And the immigration numbers didn't start going up until later on in the year, and then by then, that's when the House was getting ready to change over. It was a 117th. And for those of you guys who don't know, every 2 years, it's a new Congress, and like they change over and stuff like that. So the first 2 years, yes, they did have a chance to go ahead and get that done, but they didn't. So they did fail at that. And then what she's mentioning is the new border bill that was bipartisan. Both parties wanted it, but that's when Trump did. He said, "Don't do it." And hello, everybody coming in. Marley, Yvette, I see everybody. Make sure y'all hit that like button.
And what they want are solutions, and they want a president of the United States who's not playing political games with the issue,
I hear you.
but actually is focused on fixing
Six
it.
Democrats voted against that bill. It would have allowed 1.8 million illegal immigrants into the country a year. A lot of conservatives had a problem with it. These are the 6 Democrats. But more importantly, back to the original premise, Jocelyn Nungari, Rachel Morin.
So the 6 Democrats did shut it down. Technically 5, and then 1 being Bernie Sanders, because technically he's an independent. They did shut it down. At the time, this was the whole, it needed 60 votes anyway. So it still wouldn't have passed because it was 49 to 50. So it wouldn't have passed anyway. So it really didn't make a difference that the 6 Democrats voted against it. But the reason why they voted against it, remember, earlier this year, that's when it was all like, we want to stop sending money to Israel and Ukraine. That was tied into the immigration bill as well, too.
Laken Riley. They are young women who were brutally assaulted and killed by some of the men who were released at the beginning of the administration, well before a negotiated bipartisan bill. Former President Clinton actually referred to Laken Riley Sunday, campaigning for you in Georgia, saying if those men had been properly vetted, Laken Riley probably would not have been killed. So if it wouldn't have happened, this is well before any negotiation. This is well before Donald Trump got involved in the politics. This is a specific policy decision by your administration to release these men into the country. So what I'm saying to you, do you owe
Bret,
those families an apology?
Let me just say, first of all, those are tragic cases. There's no question about that. There's no question about that. And I can't imagine the pain that the families of those victims have experienced for a loss that should not have occurred. So that is true. It is also true that if a border security had actually been passed 9 months ago, it would be 9 months that we would have had more border agents at the border, more support for the folks who are working around the clock trying to hold it all together,
Madam Vice President,
to ensure that no future harm would occur. And this election in 20 days will determine whether we have a president of the United States who actually cares more about fixing a problem, even if it is not to their political advantage in an election, because there was a solution, Bret.
Madam Vice President, it was a policy decision in the early part of your administration. I will let one of the mothers talk.
So before he plays the video from one of the mothers, and again, like this was, I think she handled it the best way she could when it comes to him playing the video of one of the mothers. But let me say this. Oh shoot, I lost my train of thought real quick. Oh no. The reason why they were reversing everything that Trump had put into place, mind you, they did keep that Title 24 in. They did keep that. But some of the ones that the whole leave them in Mexico and stuff like that, the reason why they got rid of that is because, remember, they were being separated at the borders. Remember, all the children were being separated from their parents. And then some of them, they didn't know where their parents even belonged because they sent the parents back, but they kept the kids, but then didn't know who the kid. Remember that? That was one of the reasons. Also, the Mexico thing about keeping them in Mexico. Well, a lot of the gangs were raping, killing. I'm sorry. Trigger warning. I didn't mean to say the actual word. R-wording. Kidnapping, trafficking. That's what was going on. So that's why they reversed those.
Talk about it. Take a listen.
Because of the Biden-Harris administration open border policies catch and release, they were enrolled in the Alternatives to Detention program. This meant that they were released into the United States. It was not even a full 3 weeks later that they would take my daughter, Jocelyn Nungari's life. I believe the Biden-Harris administration open border policies are responsible for the death of my daughter.
That's the early days. So do you owe them an apology is what I'm saying.
I will tell you that I am so sorry for her loss. I'm so sorry for her loss. Sincerely. But let's talk about what is happening right now with an individual who does not want to participate in solutions. Let's talk about that as well.
But do you
Bret,
want to answer
in all
her?
fairness, I told you, I feel awful for what she and her family have experienced.
During that time, you said repeatedly that the border was secure. When in your mind did it start becoming a crisis?
I think we've had a broken immigration system transcending, by the way, Donald Trump's administration even before. Let's all be honest about that.
Right. And I have said that immigration has always been a thing that's never gone away. It's just that certain times people use it as a political talking point, because I bet you anything, come next year after the election is over with, we're going to forget about immigration. And then in the next 4 years, we're going to be like, damn, we got an immigration crisis. But I guarantee next year we won't even be talking about immigration. It'll be something else. But I want to go to something. Like I said, I think she handled that question the best way she could. I mean, what do you say to the mom? Like, all you can say is sorry. Like, shit. Like, that's effed up. Like, I'm sorry about that. Like, for her, I feel like that was the best answer that she could give. Like, what more could she have done? And then Bret is trying to basically yell it in, like, oh, you don't feel bad? It's because of your policies. This is why the reason. And here's my question to that. So are we saying that underneath Trump, there was no immigrants that committed any crimes? You know what I mean? By the way, yes, they were. Under every administration, there's immigrants that have committed crimes. So again, like, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, that happened during your administration, but it happens for every administration. I kind of would have threw that in their face, but I see why she didn't, because then it'll just make it seem like she's just passing the buck along.
I have no pride in saying that this is a perfect immigration system. I've been clear, I think we all are, that it needs to be fixed. We need more. I was just down at the border talking with border agents, and they will tell you, and I'm sure you probably, I know you investigate and you are a serious journalist. They will tell you, we need more judges. We need to process those cases faster. We need the support for those cases that should be prosecuted. They need more resources.
Well,
that's how this system works.
That's the premise of this question. There were 90 plus executive orders that were rescinded in the first days. Many of those were Trump border policies. I'm not going to stay here because there's other things to talk about, but you frequently talk to the Border Patrol Union for support of that bipartisan bill, and they did. They supported it. But they also just endorsed Donald Trump and said, you've been, quote, a failure with border security. Why do you think they said that?
I think they're frustrated, and I get it. They want support. They want support, and that's what that border security bill would have done. These guys down at the border, these men and women, they're working hard. They're working around the clock. I get it.
There's a lot of people that look back and.
By the way, there's multiple border unions. It's just that the biggest one endorsed Trump, but there's multiple border unions. So
what you said in 2019 when you first ran for president, and there have been changes, and you've talked about some of them. When it comes to immigration, you supported allowing immigrants in the country illegally to apply for driver's license, to qualify for free tuition at universities, to be enrolled in free healthcare. Do you still support those things?
Listen, that was 5 years ago, and I'm very clear that I will follow the law. I have made that statement over and over again, and as Vice President of the United States, that's exactly what I've done, not to mention before.
If that's the case, you chose a running.
I was going to say, they already can go to college, and they already can get driver's license, so I don't know why he asked her that question. But I think what he was trying to allude to basically her past, because I don't know if you guys remember, but remember in 20, I just said remember twice, but in 2020, everybody was running like Bernie Sanders. The only one that was different, and now I know why he won, talking about Joe Biden. Joe Biden was the only one that was different, but everybody else was for universal health care, immigration reform, pathway to citizenship, you know, everything that was far left and everything that would honestly help people, but everything that was to the left, like you had to be the extreme to the left and the opposite of Trump. And so everybody was running like a Bernie Sanders at the time. And I think that honestly hurt all of them, because all of them sounded like Bernie Sanders, but he was the one who had the actual plan in the beginning. So, you know, I think for her, she should just say like, hey, at the time, this is what the people wanted. And so I was running the way the audience went, but now I have progressed and changed. Like, you know, I think she should have threw that in there.
Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, who signed those very things into state law. So do you support that?
We are very clear, and I am very clear, as is Tim Walz, that we must support and enforce federal law, and that is exactly what we will do.
So decriminalizing border crossings, like you said in 2019.
I do not believe in decriminalizing border crossings, and I've not done that as vice president. I will not do that as president.
So these are evolutions that you've had.
But let's be very clear. I'm the only person who's running for president who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations, from the Sinaloa cartel to the Guadalajara cartel to people who have trafficked in guns, drugs, and human beings. I have spent a significant part of my career going after people who present a threat to the safety of the American people and cross our border with the intent of doing us harm and cross our border illegally. And I will do that work as vice president. I take that work quite seriously.
This is a time when voters, especially here in Pennsylvania, are inundated with commercials and ads. They just want it to stop because it's every commercial. But many of them add noise, but a few of them seem to break through. This particular one from the Trump campaign got a lot of attention.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery for prisoners. Every transgender
Here we go.
inmate in the prison system would have access.
So are you still in support of using taxpayer dollars to help prison inmates or detained illegal aliens to transition to another gender?
I will follow the law, and it's a law that Donald Trump actually followed. You're probably familiar with, now it's a public report, that under Donald Trump's administration, these surgeries were available on a medical necessity basis to people in the federal prison system. And I think, frankly, that ad from the Trump campaign is a little bit of like throwing stones when you're living in a glass house.
The Trump aides say that he never advocated for that prison policy and no gender transition
well,
surgeries
you know what, you got to take responsible for what happened in your administration.
Yeah, no surgeries.
So that was signed into law during Trump's administration. Basically, it's not just the surgery. Like, of course, they're going to get you with the, oh, yeah, they're getting surgeries for everybody. It was just gender affirming care. So as far as like the hormones and stuff like that, they would supply the transgender people with the hormones. But that was signed in during Trump. There has been a case where one person has had an operation, but that was in 2022. This is what they're trying to link her up with, that one surgery, but that's the only actual surgery that happened. And it's for everybody in prison, not just immigrants. It's for everybody.
It's happened in his presidency. So would you still advocate for using taxpayer dollars for gender reassignment?
I will follow the law, just as I think Donald Trump would say he did.
You would have a say as president.
Like I said, I think he spent $20 million on those ads, trying to create a sense of fear in the voters because he actually has no plan in this election that is about focusing on the needs of the American people. Whereas at $20 million on that ad, on an issue that, as it relates to the biggest issues that affect the American people, it's really quite remote. And again, his policy was no different. Look at where we are, though. On plans for the American people, I'm offering a plan to deal with affordable housing. I'm offering a plan to deal with what we need to do to strengthen small businesses, which are the backbone of America's economy. I am offering a plan that is about taking care of young parents and giving them the support.
And I think also she should have added, like, you don't have to like it, but this is the law. Like, I'm going to follow the law. It's already put into place. What you want me to do? Are you trying to tell me to overturn it? Like, is that what you're doing?
As have been reviewed by 16 Nobel laureates, Goldman Sachs, Moody's, and recently the Wall Street Journal, which have all studied our plans and have indicated my plans for our economy would strengthen our economy, his would make them weaker, would ignite inflation and invite a recession by the middle of next year. Those are the facts.
Why do you think more people say they trust him on the economy than they trust you?
I think that when you look at an analysis of our plans for what we would do as president of the United States, it has been clear to those who study and understand how economic policy works that moving forward, because I do believe the American people are ready to turn the page on the divisiveness and the type of rhetoric that has come out of Donald Trump. People are ready to chart a new way forward, and they want a president who has a plan for the future and a plan that is sound and will strengthen our country. My plan for the economy does exactly that. His plan would be, again, to give tax cuts to billionaires and the biggest corporations in our country and blow up our deficit.
It's interesting you said turn the page, Madam Vice President. You were asked on 2 different shows last week what, if anything, you would do differently than President Biden. Here's what you said.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
I know.
And so that would be one change in terms of, but also I think it's important to say with, 28 days to go, I'm not Donald Trump.
So you're not Joe Biden, you're not Donald Trump, but nothing comes to mind that you would do differently?
Let me be very clear. My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency. And like every new president that comes into office, I will bring my life experiences, my professional experiences, and fresh and new ideas. I represent a new generation of leadership. I, for example, am someone who has not spent the majority of my career in Washington, D.C. I invite ideas, whether it be from the Republicans who are supporting me, who were just on stage with me minutes ago, and the business sector, and others who can contribute to the decisions that I make about, for example, my plan for increasing the supply of housing in America and bringing down the cost of housing, addressing the issue of small businesses, which is about working with the private sector to bring more capital and access to capital to our small business leaders, including my plan for a $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers and for small businesses, extending the tax deduction from $5,000 to $50,000.
We've heard a lot about those plans in recent days. Your campaign slogan is a new way forward, and it's time to turn the page. You've been
I wanted to say, I like how she answered that. I have no complaints about it. I think she was right in saying that, it's not a continuation of Joe Biden. This is my own administration. And also, too, she didn't throw Joe Biden under the bus, which, again, I know they're trying to tack her on with, you did this, you did that, you did this. Technically, she did not do it. She's the vice president. A vice president doesn't sign any executive orders. Basically, they're there to support the president and whatever policies they want to push through. So you could say, yeah, she was a part of his administration, but technically you can't say she did it. Oh, but she did break tiebreakers in the Senate. She did do that.
3.5 years. So what are you turning the page from?
Well, first of all, turning the page from the last decade in which we've been burdened with the kind of rhetoric coming from Donald Trump that has been designed and implemented to divide our country and have Americans literally point fingers at each other. Rhetoric and an approach to leadership that suggests that the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down instead of what we all know. The strength of leadership is based on who you lift up. The strength of an American president, which is one who understands that the vast majority of us have more in common than what separates us.
Madam Vice President, more than 70% of people
that is about turning the page on rhetoric that people are frankly exhausted of, Brett.
More than 70% of people tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you.
So I looked up something because it always amazes me how people say like, oh, we're doing so bad and we're doing this and that. And I remember it was kind of reminiscent of the Obama years when they'd be like, Obama is destroying the country and stuff like that. But not, for a couple of things. I want to say about the whole poll. At the time, when Trump and Joe Biden, when they were making that transition, at that time with Trump's administration, it was down to 11% that we were going in the wrong direction. Because remember, when COVID hit, we were struggling. People were out of jobs. People were on unemployment. At the time, people were dying. And hell, that carried in through 2021 as well, too. But don't forget, we were already in this economic downturn because of everything that happened and Trump not taking COVID seriously. So again, they had to basically clean up his mess. And that's what they've been doing,
You being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page.
And usually usually the policies don't go into effect until after the first 4 years. So technically, we're living through the Trump years.
You've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam
You
Vice
and I
President.
both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
What I'm talking about is that over the last decade, people have become, but listen, over the last decade, it is clear to me, and certainly the Republicans who are on stage with me, the former chief of staff to the president, Donald Trump, former defense secretaries, national security advisor, and his vice president, one, that he is unfit to serve, that he is unstable, that he is dangerous, and that people are exhausted with someone who professes to be a leader who spends full time demeaning and engaging in personal grievances and it being about him
Madam
instead
Vice
of
President,
the American people.
if
People
that's the
are
case,
tired of that.
If that's the case, why is half the country supporting him? Why is he beating you in a lot of swing states? Why, if he's as bad as you say, that half of this country is now supporting this person who could be the 47th president of the United States? Why is that happening?
This is an election for president of the United States. It's not supposed to be easy.
I know, but
It's not supposed to be. It is not supposed to be a
so
cakewalk
are they misguided?
for anyone.
I was going to say, since 2000, I feel like politics it's been down the middle. And what I mean by down the middle is that, yeah, everybody's either Republican or everybody's either Democrat, and everybody is really split. I think since 2016, with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, it has become more prominent when people are really in their corners. Like, I only want to deal with Republicans, and then the other side, I only want to deal with Democrats. Then you have the independents in the middle that go either way. And that's what kind of everybody's fighting for, is the independents. But it's really everybody's in their corners now. Can I blame the whole thing on Donald Trump? No, I don't think necessarily he created the Great Division. He only helped it. Now let's continue.
50%?
Listen,
Are they stupid?
Oh,
What is
God,
it?
I would never say that about the American people. And in fact, if you listen to Donald Trump, if you watch any of his rallies, he's the one who tends to demean and belittle and diminish the American people. He's the one who talks about an enemy within, an enemy within, talking about the American people, suggesting he would turn the American military on the American people.
We asked that question to the former president today. Harris Faulkner had a town hall.
Pay attention to
and
this.
This is how he responded.
I heard about that. They were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true. No, but think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
So,
Brett, I'm sorry, and with all due respect, that clip was not what he has been saying about the enemy within that he has repeated when he's speaking about the American people. That's not what you just showed.
he was asked
No,
about that
no,
specific...
that's not what you just showed. In all fairness and
I'm telling
respect
you,
to
that was
you,
the question that we asked him.
you didn't show that, and here's the bottom line. He has repeated it many times, and you and I both know that. And
So Fox News was trying to pull a fast one. They with the bullshit, because that wasn't the full context of the clip. They try to set her up. And that's why I actually do have the clip right here. Hold on, let me play it for you guys. The full context of the clip. They were trying to set her up. I'm happy that she called them out in real time.
I want to take a look at what you said and just tell me. Let's watch it.
If we have to.
Yeah,
We have two enemies. We have the outside enemy, and then we have the enemy from within. And the enemy from within, in my opinion, is more dangerous than China, Russia, and all these countries, because if you have a smart president, he can handle them pretty easily. But the thing that's tougher to handle are these lunatics that we have inside, like Adam Schiff. I call him the enemy from within.
Mr. President, Kamala Harris has said you sounded unhinged and unchecked power is in our future. What do you say about that?
I thought it was a nice presentation. I wasn't unhinged. You know what they are? They're a party of sound bites. Somebody asked me, can they be brought together? I never thought, really, I wasn't thinking like they could, because they're very, very different. And it is the enemy from within, and they're very dangerous. They're Marxists and communists and fascists.
So that was the full context of the clip. That's why she was like, wait, that's not what he said. I'm happy she called him out.
And you and I both know that he has talked about turning the American military on the American people. He has talked about going after people who are engaged in peaceful protest. He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. Mm-hmm. And in a democracy, the president of the United States in the United States of America should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it. And this is what is at stake, which is why you have someone like the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying what Mark Milley has said. Which is funny because a lot of people go like, oh, Project 2025 is separate from Trump's agenda. Well, Agenda 47 and Project 2025, they both talk about getting rid of
extreme radical leftists out of government and all this other. They both have the same language about getting rid of extreme leftists.
About Donald Trump being a threat to the United States of America.
He's quoted in the Bob Woodward book that way, yes. Let me ask you this,
No,
Madam Vice President.
but
You
let's
call
not
Donald
diminish
Trump,
the significance
you
of that.
call Donald Trump, he's misguided.
He tried to
You
move
say
on
now
from
he's
that.
unstable.
He is unstable, Brett.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable.
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this. You
and
told
we
many
should all be
interviewers
concerned.
that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
Thank you.
Donald Trump
But
is.
you talked about it.
And Donald Trump
After
is.
George Clooney said
and
within a
if
few
you
minutes of
watch
talking to President
Donald
Biden at
Trump,
a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same Joe Biden that we saw on the debate
Donald Trump
stage.
Listen, Joe Biden was probably napping during this whole interview. He probably ain't even watched this yet. He probably still sleeping. Again, he's not running. Like, I think at this point, yeah, when Joe Biden was in the running, it was kind of like, ooh, what's going on? But I think now, oh, how come you didn't say Joe Biden was this? I don't care anymore. Like, I don't think anybody on any side cares about Joe Biden at this point. It's kind of like, okay, we done moved on from that.
on the ballot.
I understand. You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump, which is why the people who know him best, including leaders of our national security community, have all spoken out. Even people who worked for him in the Oval Office, worked with him in the Situation Room, and have said he is unfit and dangerous and should never be president of the United States again, including his former vice president, which is why the job was open for him to choose another running mate. So that is a fact. That is a fact.
Madam Vice President, two more things. You were asked on 60 Minutes about the biggest threat that the world faces, that the U.S. faces. This is what you said.
Which foreign country do you consider to be our greatest adversary?
I think there's an obvious one in mind, which is Iran. Iran has American blood on their hands, okay? This attack on Israel, 200 ballistic missiles. What we need to do to ensure that Iran never achieves the ability to be a nuclear power, that is one of my highest priorities.
A number of experts thought you would say China. The FBI director had said that. But you said Iran. If that's the case, what do you say to critics who look at the actions of your administration and say you're not acting like Iran is the #1 threat?
Well, I will tell you most recently, whether it was in April or in October, and then several hours on each occasion that Iran posed a threat to Israel, I was there. Most recently in the Situation Room, in the most recent attack, working with the heads of our military and doing what America must always do to defend and to support Israel in its requirement to defend itself and to give American support to be able to allow Israel to have the resources to defend itself against attack, including from Iran and Iran's terrorist proxies in the region.
Right.
And that is, and my commitment to that is unyielding and unwavering.
Critics just say that you either relaxed or failed to enforce sanctions on Iran, allowing all of this money to flow.
So I was gonna say, so this was before they, I don't know if you guys know, but the leader of Hamas, the Yahya Sinwar, that guy, he was deleted. They deleted him today. So this was before that even happened. But again, Israel. Listen, you guys, I know people, I don't care about other countries. I only care about the U.S. But Israel is going to be an issue because they're fighting Lebanon, they're fighting Iran, they fighting everybody. And who has to help them? We do. So that's definitely going to come in the next year. I promise you. This thing ain't over with.
Flow into Iran, like billions.
Let's go back to Donald Trump, who pulled out of a deal that would have actually put Iran in check.
The estimates in billions.
It was during Donald Trump's
that
administration
that Iran regime
that we had an American military base that was attacked, where American soldiers suffered traumatic brain injuries, and Donald Trump dismissed them as headaches, not to mention
It's okay.
that
I
Donald Trump
appreciate
all of this money
has treated
that
and
has
talked
gone
about
in the
America's
past few
military
years.
and military service people,
Critics
calling them
say that it goes to
suckers and
Hezbollah,
losers,
Hamas,
has diminished
and
the
Houthis. We're
significance.
talking over each other. I
Well,
apologize.
I would like that we would have a conversation that is grounded in full assessment of the facts, which includes, I think this interview is supposed to be about the choices that your viewers should be presented about this election, and the contrast is important.
Yes, ma'am.
And on the subject of Iran, I am offering what should be an important contrast that is presented for folks to make a
And there
decision
are
that
critics
they
who
feel.
look at what the administration did and say and think differently. Madam Vice President, they're wrapping me very hard here. I hope you got to say what you wanted to say about Donald Trump. There are a lot of things
There's more to say. I have much more
there
to
are a
say.
lot of things that people
She
want
said
to
I
know
got
about
much
you
more to
and your
say.
policies,
Yes.
and that's why we
I
invited
invite
you here.
everyone to go to kamalaharris.com, and you will see that I have 80 pages of policies that are quite comprehensive and should be accessible to anyone who would like to read them. And it includes what I intend to do about affordable housing, what I intend to do about small businesses, what I do
And that's why
intend
we
to do to
invited you
strengthen our
here,
economy,
to see where you were in 2019 and where you are
support
now.
America's military, and should we have the most lethal and best fighting force in the world.
Madam Vice President,
And
they're giving me a hard rap
Well,
here.
I thank you for the time.
I thank you for the time.
It's good to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to
All right.
subscribe to
So
Fox
that's
News.
enough of that. All right. So we ended that. Okay. So yeah. So that was the interview right there. And I do want to say that Bret Baier, he did apologize to Kamala. Let me go ahead and pull that up right here. Shout out to the Shade Room. Even though they don't show me no love, we'll still give them credit for, you know, what they have. Yeah, I thought she did very well. With what she was given, you know. All right, here we go.
I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within, not even the people that have come in and destroying our country. We have some sick people,
Let me
radical.
do that one more time because it didn't play the whole thing.
Harold, I did make a mistake, and I want to say that mistake. When I called for a soundbite, I was expecting a piece of the enemy from within from Maria Bartiromo's interview to be tied to the piece from your town hall, Harris, where you asked the former president about the enemy from within. It just had the piece about the town hall, and just take a listen to what I meant to roll.
I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within, not even the people that have come in and destroying our country. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military. They were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true. No, but think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
Harold, I did make a mistake. My point was that we asked him the question about that sentence and what he was trying to mean. My point was that we asked him the question about that sentence and what he was trying to mean.
We asked that question to the former president.
There we go. Okay, that's it. All right, but yeah, so that's what he was quote unquote trying to do. But you can't tell me that you didn't see the clip beforehand before they played it, and you're trying to say even the clip that they played, mine was actually longer than what they had showed. Even that was edited. So again, a lot of the BS that they try to pull, they were trying to make sure that Trump looked good, because you have to remember he was calling them out and saying like, why would you be having this lady on here? You guys are propping her up. And he was basically mad because it was going to give her promo on his kind of, you know, news, even though he don't own Fox News, but that's his go-to right there. I wanted to talk real quick about his town hall. So Trump town hall, when he had all these white women there, I don't know if it was supposed to only be white women, but I didn't see nothing but white women. All the snow bunny. He had a snow bunny hall. So he had all the snow bunnies there, right? Come to find out, that was set up by the Republicans. Like, these weren't just potential voters or anything like that. Like, these were actually Trump voters. Like, this was his fan base. And they had to edit out parts of where people said they voted for him. And also, they were cheering like Trump, 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 Trump. They edited that out of the town hall too as well. So that town hall wasn't even live or anything like that. They had to edit all that stuff out because when you do a town hall, it's supposed to welcome everybody. But at the same token, that was all set up with actual Trump supporters there, which I'm not surprised by that. And the thing is that you're supposed to share that information if, you know, these are a group of your supporters or who these people are. So again, that makes sense why he did that town hall, because those are all his fans. Mind you, he didn't want to do the 60-minute interview. He's pulling out of a lot of interviews and stuff like that that's not favorable to him. So it seemed like he's playing the game of, you know, cat and mouse and shit because he's worried. And he should be. He should be worried. I'll be honest, at first I thought I was all like, oh man, like, I don't know. I think people aren't going to vote for Kamala, but I think pretty much she got this in the bag. I'm more than 50% sure. I'm about 75% sure she got it. I think people want to get back into boring politics. And what I mean by boring politics, oh, thank you, Ryan. What I mean by boring politics is like just regular politics. I think it was great during the Trump years of like all the chaos and stuff like that, all the sound bites. But we just want to get back to our regular lives and, you know, none of this crazy shit. It has gotten so ugly to where you can't even talk to somebody on the other side. Like, you literally have to hold your breath and be all like, okay, should I go off on this person, or, you know, should I try to have a conversation? Like, you have these thoughts in your head because it's all like, I know you can't be that ignorant. And I feel like with his supporters, it feeds into a certain ignorance. And not all, you know, not everyone. Like, there's some people I can definitely, like, shout out to Ricky Manor. I can have a conversation with him. Like, he's a dope dude. And he's like a Trumper all through and through. But most of them, I can't have a conversation with because it just goes, yeah, there's no conversation to be had. And especially when they don't know what they're talking about. And I'm just kind of like, where'd you get that information from? The internet is a good place and a dangerous place. And I realize that other people don't look at, you know, all sides of the spectrum. They only look at one side of the spectrum. And because if you're on a certain side of social media, you will only see certain things. You won't see everything. And so you'll stay in this box. And I can see why they think the way they do is because they literally just stay in this one box. They don't go anywhere else. Like, they just stay in the one box. That's it. Relationships are ending with political differences. Yeah. And, you know, and I don't even think it has to, but yeah, that is true. Sexy 60, that is. In 2020, on my personal Facebook, I deleted a lot of white people when they started talking about that all lives matter and you need to stand for the flag. When they started talking that shit, oh, delete it. And then they started blaming black people for their own deaths and stuff, like delete it. You know, my personal Facebook is very black now. Before, it didn't used to be like that. It used to be a lot of Caucasians, but I had to cut a lot of them off because when they started talking that ignorant shit, listen, I'm okay if you think, oh, we need more funding for this program, that program. But when you start talking about whether or not my life matters, fuck you, bitch. You out of here. Like, that's how I was. I cut off a lot of people. Anybody with that ignorant shit, I cut them off. I'm sorry. They had to go. So, again, but yeah, a lot of people's relationships have faltered, but I think for the most part, I can have a conversation with anybody. Like Miss Barbara get up here with misinformation, a lot of misinformation, and I can have a conversation with her because I love Miss Barbara and there's a certain respect. Would I let everyone get away with what Miss Barbara does? No, I definitely would not let everybody get away, but I have a certain respect for Miss Barbara, so I'll let it happen. But there's some people I'll be like, I don't have the time to. Like I said, I'm not against a debate. The reason why I didn't want to do Genesis debate is because one, there was no money involved. Two, it was a certain crowd that wanted to kind of have this fight and this whole back and forth thing. And I just was all like, I'll have conversations about policies, but I'm not going to have a shit slinging contest with you. That's what I'm not going to do. I don't mind doing policies, but a shit slinging contest, I'm not going to do that. And then thirdly, the audience didn't seem like they would be open for being educated on certain issues. So that's why I chose not to do it. But if there is a and it doesn't even have to be my platform. If there's a platform that wants to have more of a dialogue and conversation, I'll be willing to do that more than a debate. A debate, it got to come with a check. That's how I feel. Anyway, y'all, I hope you guys are registered to vote, or some of y'all have voted. There was over 300,000 people that voted the first day in Georgia. So it seemed like Georgia is, yeah, they ain't playing in Georgia. They out there voting already and stuff like that. So congratulations to everybody in Georgia. Again, I don't know. It only tells you the party affiliation. It doesn't tell you like what, who they voted or what they voted. The ballots can't be counted until the day of. So we won't know until, election day. And we're still going to have our election party. So don't worry. And if Kamala loses, I'm deleting the whole stream. I'm just going to be honest. If she loses, we deleting the whole damn stream. The stream is gone. The show is over with. But make sure you guys hit that like button. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. The exit polls are showing Kamala. Oh, thank you. Okay. So they are showing Kamala, the exit polls. Thank you. Oh, wow. Well, it's looking good. So we'll see what happens. But thank you guys for checking out the show, and we'll be back later. I'm going to come back tonight. We're going to talk about something else. So make sure you guys look for an update. Make sure you guys are following me on all the pages. AT2 Entertainment over on Facebook. What's the other one? TikTok, AT2_for real. Instagram, AT2_for real. And then, of course, over here on YouTube. Other than that, y'all, we out. Deuces, everybody.